Lily and welcome to my Everything I Made in 2022 video. I'm a knitwear designer, I'm Lily Kate Makes on Instagram, and this is where I normally share my podcasts of things that I'm making at the moment. However, today we've got a whole year's roundup, so I'm in a different location to usual. I'm house sitting at the moment. Hopefully it isn't too echoey. Got a good little lighting setup here and hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm a little bit delayed in filming this because I got the same lurgy, same cold that everybody seemed to have over Christmas, and I was just coughing and sneezing and really not my best self. So much as I would have liked to have this filmed before the end of 2022, that did not happen. So here we are on the 3rd of January filming instead. So I will try not to waffle too much, but can't make any promises there because I do have a tendency to go off on a tangent a little bit. But anyway, starting with what I'm wearing, which was the first item that I made last January. It feels like ages ago. It feels like more than a year that I've had this one for some reason. I think it might actually be one of my favourites. This is my Time sweater. I started on a good note. It took me a little while to get going as I had some other commitments last January and was just kind of figuring out a new workflow kind of system. But anyway, once it was done, it didn't actually take too long to knit. It was just my life at the time. And I love it. It's probably one of my most worn items. And this is the direction that I think I want to go more with my designs going forward, kind of looser and very relaxed. I think because I've had more wear out of this one than a lot of my maybe more dressy items, it makes me think that I want to design more things like this just because it's so wearable. So I used Rowan Felted Tweed and Kidsilk Haze held together, and for this really nice airy fabric with a drop stitch ladders along the sleeves and this notch neck with a slipped stitch rib edging. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? And I just love it. I think I kind of want to knit another one just because it gets so much wear. So yeah, that was my first project of January 2022. The next couple of projects I worked on last year actually tone very nicely with what I'm wearing. So they were my after hours socks and my sun up socks, which I will show some close-ups of. These are the first pairs of socks I've actually designed, and I really enjoyed both knitting and designing them. So both of these socks feature a modified short row heel where there is additional shaping around the heel section to add a kind of gusset, just to mean that the fabric isn't too stretched around the heel. In the case of the after hours socks, which are in a lace mesh kind of stitch, those stitches are incorporated into extra lace mesh, which just creates a nice right angle and kind of flows nicely around the ankle. And for the sun up socks, which are worked mostly in rib with a little cable detail on the back of the ankle, those extra stitches are incorporated into an additional cable that sits again nicely on the inside and outside of the ankle. Those are my next projects, and I'm definitely thinking I'm going to design more socks in 2023. So after I knit the socks, I launched straight into summer knitting, which, as I've mentioned on this channel many times before, summer knits are kind of my favourite. So I love making small strappy items with fun constructions and things like that. So this is my one that I want crop, which I actually designed in 2021 and then ran a knit along for in, I think it was April? Yeah, April 2022. So of course I had to knit another version, but by this point I already had two of the original style, which had like a scalloped edging and was in one solid colour. So I thought I'd do something a little bit different. So this version has, as you can see, just pinstripes, which is literally just one garter ridge every now and then, carefully placed throughout. And instead of the button back, I did a lace up back, which is just an I-cord and crochet loops along the edge. So it's that the details for how to do that aren't included in the pattern, but it is very, very simple. It's literally just crocheting around and then making an I-cord. And I omitted the scalloped edging just because I thought it was a bit much. So I usually make my size 2 in all of my samples, that is my size. However, with this version, I wanted the straps to sit a little bit wider. So the instructions for doing this are included in the pattern. The pattern includes all sorts of notes on how to modify and get it to fit you perfectly. It's a great one for customising as you go along with this one. So I actually knit it in a size 1, so from here to here, the shaping, that is all per the size 1 up to this point. And then to take it back up to fit me, I added some extra rows in the centre here, so it's more like a standard size 1 3/4 probably, which just meant that these straps sit a little bit further, a bit wider apart now, which is just what I wanted. I thought it would go with the pinstripes. I mean, that I have this kind of princess scene kind of line going on down here, and I really like it. I wore it quite a lot, took it away travelling with me in summer, got a lot of wear. So I used a technically DK, but I think it's more like a worsted weight cotton acrylic blend, which I think worked really well. That's one of my favourite blends to use for summer items. Rather than a pure cotton that doesn't hold its shape as well and is a bit heavy, I think cotton acrylic, it's machine washable, it bounces back when it's being washed, and it's just really nice and comfortable to wear, even in a garter stitch on this needle size. Produces a reasonably dense, squishy fabric, but it doesn't feel heavy to wear even on a warm day. Next up was my Take Turns tank, another summer item that I wore lots this year. I just clipped my hair up so you can see the main detail, which is these ridgy, stripy thingies on the back there, and a little racer back shape. So I used Kokon yarn for this, the Merino linen for the main body, and then the Slubby Mohair for the back pieces. And they sent me the yarn and some mini skeins of the Slubby Mohair, and I just, after having a little play around with them, I thought I really wanted to use them in a summer design, but obviously big loopy mohair was a bit much for actually going against your skin in summer. So after a little bit of swatching and playing around, I landed on this idea of having the stripes sit on top of the fabric. So the Slubby Mohair isn't actually against your skin at any point, but it just features in these sort of raised stripes on the back, which makes it a good chance to use all sorts of weird novelty yarns. You could use sparkly yarn, fluffy yarn, all sorts. My test knitters used loads of different things, and it was just really fun to play around with that on this one actually. I mean, it did drive me mad in the process, not the yarn, the design that is. Sometimes the design just goes right first time, but rarely. I'm finding that with the pattern that I'm working on at the moment, I'm kind of like, oh, I can't tell if it's going just right or really not, and I always have these dilemmas, and I'm like, do I carry on, do I not? But yeah, sometimes it's tricky. And this one was definitely an example of that, because I don't even know how many times I had to frog back. It was the neck shaping, and then this sort of racer front shaping where it's not just straight down and then increases, it's more curved to create that nice sporty kind of shape there. And just the armholes, I can't remember, were they too deep, were they too shallow, I can't remember. They weren't right, whatever it was, and I had to change them. I think they were too deep, can't remember. But yeah, every design goes through a stage where I want to throw it out the window. Probably multiple stages in fact, but we got there in the end, and I'm happy with it. So I think I made this one in, well, I definitely wore it on my trip in May, so I must have made it in about April, something like that. And I mean, it would have been a very quick knit if I had just gone start to finish straight through, but that never happened, so here we are. I think if I was just knitting, not designing, because I can knit reasonably quick, and I knit a lot because I just fit it around my life and whatever I'm doing, I would knit so many things. I would probably knit too much, to be fair, like I just wouldn't have the space for them. I struggle as it is. But if I was just following other people's patterns, I'm sure I would whiz through them, so maybe it's a good thing that it forces me to slow down and not have a crazy amount in my wardrobe, because yeah, it maybe could get excessive otherwise. Anyway, that was my next project. I'm not counting here, I think we're on 4 or something like that. My Take Turns tank. I'm losing my marbles. The next item, my upwards top, I actually made 2 of. So I have this version that is navy with white, which I'm wearing here with the keyhole in the back. And I made this version, which is white with navy, which I'll show in a second, with the keyhole at the front. It's reversible. So I really enjoyed making these actually. I was playing yarn chicken. So knitting from the top down, I was able to keep knitting until I ran out, which was nice. And they're just nice basic kind of, yeah, more little summer tops. They're knit in 4-ply weight yarn, 4-ply / fingering weight, depending where you are in the world. And I used a 3.75mm needle, so it's grew reasonably quickly really. And for the size 2, which is a 32 to 34 inch bust that I made, I was able to get a whole top out of 360 metres if I remember rightly, like so a single skein and not a particularly generous skein either, so I was quite happy with that. Wore them quite a bit. My only complaint about these is the fact that this navy bled really badly and dyes my skin blue, so anytime I wear this I have to be careful what I wear with it, because if I wore white pants then the waistband would get dyed, and I'm always, like with this one, I'm left with navy lines around here, and yeah, that's not great. But other than that, I love how the dye looks, even if it does transfer to my skin, and dyed my hands blue as I was knitting it, but hey ho. Overall, happy with these. Would make again. I can't remember whether I ever actually shared this item on YouTube or not, because it was a design that I never published the pattern for, it was just for me. So I actually made this as part of an Instagram ad collaboration with Lovecrafts for this Debbie Bliss Dulce yarn, where I was asked to create a reel for Instagram, and I thought that rather than just do an unboxing or something boring like that, I would make an item, and I wanted to make something that I could show it growing line by line. And after swatching a few knitted stitch patterns and things like that, nothing was quite clicking until I realised, why don't I just crochet? That would work much better. So this is my one and only crochet item of the year. Did I make anything else? I don't think so. I think this is the only thing I crocheted. Using Debbie Bliss Dulce yarn, which was a chunky weight. So I created a reel for this where I literally just filmed every row that I added on for each of the pieces and did it on Dolly, my mannequin, and that meant that I just had to keep going for 3 days without moving the mannequin or the camera, which was a bit of a challenge. I had to plan carefully, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. I won't be writing the pattern up just because there are a few things about this that made it much easier just to freestyle it rather than actually try and explain how I was doing things, and sometimes, I mean, I could if I really wanted to write the pattern up, but I'm happy with it just being a one-off. So this is a nameless little summer top that I made in May. I'm sure you'll agree that stitches seem to hold memories very well, I find. And I always remember where I was when I was knitting something. So this Adidas top was my travel project whilst I was in Austria in summer. I started on the plane on the way out, knit on the train, knit on the park benches, knit all over the place whilst I was travelling, and I just absolutely loved working on it and how it turned out. This is one of my favourite projects of 2022. I'm so happy with how it turned out, and the pattern has been really popular, which of course makes me very happy. Yeah, it's just a little yoke sweater kind of, not sweater, t-shirt. I did do a sweater version. Knit in DK weight yarn with sheer mohair panels, which I never intended for the sheer mohair to become my thing, but it seems to have inadvertently happened, that I've used this sheared panel details in quite a few designs now, I think 4 or 5 at this point. I just think it's a really nice design element, and I love knitting with mohair, and especially when contrasted with something else like the tucks here. It's a really nice contrast. So this is my Adidas top summer project from May and June. As I said, I'm cat sitting / house sitting at the moment, so this is little Kitty, my friend for the week. Oh no, he likes to cuddle on his terms only. After the Adidas top, I thought I'd probably done enough summer items, even though this was only June or so at this point. Realised I needed to get ahead on autumn, so I returned to using my own yarn. So this is Axis by Lily Kate, nice and cosy to wear. I had a few false starts with this one. It was this bright pink yarn was originally a ribbed V-neck puff sleeve top that just failed. I just had to call it quits. It was not working for me. So eventually I got sick of that, scrapped it and decided to cast on something much looser, much more simple. A nice project that would be enjoyable to work on because I'd been wanting to throw that one out the window, and just nice and relaxed to wear. So this was exactly what I wanted. I didn't have to frog anything at all. It all went right first time, which was just such a relief. And I really enjoyed knitting it, really enjoyed wearing it. Kind of want one in a neutral because it feels like such a nice basic that I should also have a neutral version, but I do love this bright pink, so this one makes me very happy to wear. It made me very happy to knit, and I just really enjoyed it. I knit this one in summer, in July and August, maybe just August, I can't remember. Yeah, July and August, when it was boiling hot, so of course that was timed great. So I had a big woolly project on my lap whilst it was like 35 degrees. Great timing there, but meant that I had it ready for autumn when the weather did get cooler, so all worked out well. This is my slowdown sweater, I can't remember whether I even said that. Whilst I was knitting my first Adidas top, I was already thinking that this was going to have to become a sweater at some point too, so I definitely wanted the first white version to be short sleeve just because it felt nice and summery, and I wanted to keep it nice and simple like that, but then when autumn came around, I had to make a little long sleeve version. So this is my Adidas sweater, which has the same yoke as the original version, but then a different way of obviously turning this into sleeves, which isn't just like sticking sleeves on. There is some more short row shaping in there. And the sleeves themselves are kind of a bishop balloon shape. Bishop balloon? You know what I mean? Bishop sleeve? That's the term, isn't it? Just because I feel like it balances it all out nicely. So I knit this in September, October in Rerum, Natura, Ulysse and onion knit silk mohair. Sorry, I keep turning around here. Probably getting really annoying, sorry about that. Really enjoyed knitting it. Wore it in the Netherlands on my trip in October, and I've worn it a few times since. So that was my next autumn project. It's kind of a bit more spa, a bit more dressy than my other sweaters at the time of year. I've definitely got muddled up with dates somewhere there because I cast on this slipover in August whilst on a camping trip in Wales, so I'm a bit out of sync there. But anyway, this is another of my autumn projects that I loved working on, my over it slipover. Probably my favourite this year if I really had to choose. Using again my yarn Axis by Lily Kate, this time in shade Lagrangian. I think this is my first garment that had cables on. I think so. I've done cabled accessories before now, but this is the first garment that I featured cables on. Down the side here. My favourite detail, love it. I've worn this loads actually, over all sorts of different items. All through autumn and winter. Kind of like it just over a t-shirt like this. And I do have the detachable turtleneck as well, which is my favourite little novelty thing. And it was quite quick to knit actually, even though I was obviously stopping to try on and, you know, amend the design and tweak things and check that it was all going in the direction I hoped. Even so, it only took a couple of weeks, so I think I could easily knit this in a week if I was just cracking on with it. I really enjoyed knitting it. Over it, slip over. So my first winter accessory of the year was my major beanie, just a little cabled beanie with some stripes in there, a little detail, that I knit up in September or thereabouts. Again, this is in my yarn, so this is in Axis by Lily Kate in shade Event Horizon, which is the navy, and then shade Albedo, which is the cream stripes. And I also actually knit, there's a few things in this video that I could include, I don't have them with me, that were abandoned projects, and the sweater that I tried in this stitch pattern is one of those. So I did the colours the other way around, it was mostly cream, then with the navy stripes. And then through October I worked on, I did the whole body, but the amount of ripping and redoing that went on, and then it became apparent once because I did it bottom up, and then once I got to the top I was like, I kept redoing this neckline and the armholes and changing things, and then I think I was trying to convince myself that that was the part that needed changing, when actually the whole thing needed like an extra pattern repeat in it. And I'd changed my original design plan. There had been a reason why I'd done it bottom up, but then it became apparent that actually for the way that I changed the design, top down would have worked and would have been more sensible, and just I just had to call it quits. So So there was a few more projects that I could have included here, and if I was at home and had all of them lying around, I would show you the abandoned whips that never made it to FO status, but I'm not at home, so we've just got the final finished items to share here. But the merger beanie, the hat version, did turn out good. I'm happy with it, so that was something. Pattern is available, of course. I don't know why I'm saying that, though. All the patterns are available, apart from that crochet one that isn't, but yeah. Ravelry, Etsy, Payhip, all linked, you know, the usual. 2022 was the year that I returned to knitting scarves and shawls and little neck things. Haven't done that in quite a few years, but my knit bow tie was the first of quite possibly a few, I think. This is the first time I've just worn it over a t-shirt, actually, mainly because this is the only plain top that I brought with me that isn't knitted. That was clever of me. But I actually quite like it. This is exactly what I had in mind, you know, like really boring outfits, then just made it a little bit more interesting with a knitted accessory. So I really enjoyed knitting this. It was exactly what I needed at the time, just to give me a basic project to be able to knit away on mindlessly. I think I said all of this in my last video, so I won't repeat myself too much, but just using sock yarn. I would definitely want to make a few more of these. It was just a fun little accessory to work on. It didn't take too long and fit in my handbag the whole time, which is always a bonus, so it was ideal for train knitting, waiting room knitting, TV knitting, you know, all of the above. Went everywhere with me. Worn it quite a lot. This next item is serving as a reminder that I really need to get on with it and put the pattern out. So this is my Cashmere hat, knit a few weeks ago, did I do it in November, December? Can't remember, November I think, using leftover yarn from my Adidas sweater. And I just think the pom-pom finishes it off nicely, but this is a cabled beanie adapted from one of my older patterns that I've been umming and ahhing, as I spoke about in my last video, whether to leave the slouchy original version in the pattern, and I think I'm not going to bother. I think the beanie just looks better. It's going to suit most people. So that is a job for today or tomorrow or this week at the very latest. It has to be done. But the pattern will be available for the Cashmere beanie, one that I originally knit years ago and then have tweaked and reknit this year. Really enjoyed doing so, and the pattern will be available soon. So my final finished object I have to share with you is my Cashmere cowl, which was a really lovely item to end 2022 with, actually, because it was just really nice and simple, very enjoyable, very luxurious yarn to work with. I used my yarn held together with a strand of hand-dyed mohair for this loop and 3 strands of mohair held together for this loop. Just my nice bunched up cowl that, as you can see, it keeps you nice and cosy. It stays up, it doesn't flop down, so I'm really happy with it. I've worn it quite a lot. I found it's been useful actually on days like, say if I'm going for a quick walk or on my way to and from the gym or something where I don't want a whole big bulky scarf that hangs down here. I need just my neck to be kept warm, that's all. And it's been really handy for that. I've worn it quite a lot and it looks nice with my green coat and my brown coat, so that's always a bonus. And I definitely think I will be making maybe more of these in 2023. So the last couple of projects that I worked on this year, I don't actually have with me for a couple of reasons. So one I made earlier this year that was a little baby jumper for my friend Rachel, for baby Benjamin, who was born in March, I think. So I did that earlier this year. I've got some photos that I can include of that. Obviously I don't have it anymore, as it was a gift, which he has now outgrown because he's a chunky little boy. But it was so nice to work on. I did the Friday Sweater Baby by Petite Knit. I would like to do some of my own baby patterns at some point, and I do have a friend who is having a girl in the next couple of months, so maybe I should do that. But as it stands, I mean, I didn't have a baby at home to work with, or, you know, I'm not as familiar with the size of children and babies, so I just wanted to be able to knit someone else's pattern and crack on with it. So I made the Friday Sweater Baby in a white base yarn with orange and green stripes. However, I did modify it to add buttons here, or here, wherever it was, just because the neck hole looked really tiny, and I didn't want to limit the amount of time he'd be able to wear it for by the neck, you know, being too small and not going over his head, so I added the button option there. which worked out quite nicely and looked really neat. So that was very satisfying to work on. I love making baby items as gifts like that. And another item that I don't have here with me, just because I forgot it, is my knitted houses, which I made so kind of as a Christmas decor thing to go with my advent patterns, but also just as an all year round decor. I mean, they're only neutral and they're houses, they're not like Christmas trees or anything that's overly festive, so they were a nice project that I made in November, just before Advent, obviously. Really enjoyed working on those. I used Jameson Smith 2-ply jumper weight for those. And then the final thing that I made this, well, not the final thing I made, the final thing I have to talk about, was a very random, definitely the most unusual thing I've made in a long time. So, it came about, it's just a bit of a weird one. I ended up getting a phone call from someone who worked at Adidas, who had been given my contact details, with my permission, as a knitwear designer. And I had this phone call saying, we sponsor Tom Daly, and we're looking to gift him a knitting pattern for a pair of swimming trunks. And we're told that you are the kind of person, you are the person who can do this. So, would you be interested with a very tight turnaround? And I was like, okay, well this is unusual, this isn't something I've ever done before, but sure, I can shape lots of things, I can do various different shaping, why can't I do trunks shaping? It's a bit different. I can't say I've ever had to shape a gusset in that way before, but there we are. So I was only actually creating the pattern, but as it was something I hadn't done before, I wanted to actually knit the pair myself just to check how it all went. Check the pattern went smoothly, so I sort of test knit them myself. So I made a pair of Union Jack print. They had a quarter of a Union Jack on the butt cheek there, which was all done with intarsia and an Adidas logo on them on the front. Neat ribbed edges, elastic waist. They were very neatly finished, and I mean, I don't think they'd stand up to the 10-metre diving board, I'll be honest, but don't think anything that could have been hand knitted would. But yeah, that was a bizarre project that I worked on. It was a challenge, it was interesting, it was fun, and I obviously don't have them to show because they have been handed over to Adidas. So yeah, that was a little diversion from my usual kind of things that I worked on in October. And I think that just about finishes, I think that's everything. I wrote myself a list and I think I've ticked everything off, so thank you very much for watching. Thanks for being a part of my 2022. I hopefully will share lots more on this YouTube channel in the next year, but it's been a really interesting year to kind of, I feel like I've got a better idea of my personal style with knitting. It's obviously always evolving, but kind of developing my personal style both as myself and as a designer, and how that kind of how the two interact, because kind of can be the same but can be slightly different. I've learned a lot, and I've also had so many opportunities to meet wonderful people through knitting this year last year even, I'm so grateful for, be that through YouTube or Instagram or in meeting people in real life. It's just, that is my favourite thing about the knitting world, is that people are so lovely and it's just a great place to connect with people. So thank you for being a part of it, thanks for watching along, and please let me know your 2023 knitting plans. I will hopefully have lots of exciting things to share. So thank you and see you soon.